in this episode, completing the square, coming up, back into action. Hey guys, today I will show you how to complete the square if you are given a trinomial or a quadratic expression. It might come in handy when you do math, so let's just do it. The first thing, you always want to have your leading or the first coefficient, which is basically the coefficient in front of x squared, to be just 1. So if you're already given the first coefficient, the leading coefficient is 1, so you could simply skip over the first step, what I'm going to do. Otherwise, if you are given something like 3x squared, 5x squared, or it could be negative, let's say negative 4x squared, blah, blah, blah. So your first step, always, you want to pull out this leading coefficient, this first coefficient, in front of this term. So you want to take this coefficient out from all terms, including the last term, which is basically the constant. So in the next line of your work, you would simply write 3. And I'm going to draw the square parentheses, and you will see why in a bit. Now, what's left over? So instead of the first term, I would simply have x squared plus, not 2, but 2 over 3, since 3 is taken out, is pulled out and placed out front of your parentheses. So you still have x. And finally, the last term becomes 8 over 3. Now, from that point, from that stage, you are going to carry down. You are going to carry this coefficient 3. Do not lose it, since many people kind of forget and they lose this coefficient. It's important. You want to carry it down. In the next line, you would write 3 and open the parentheses. You are going to rewrite the first two terms as is. Now, at this point, you are going to add to your trinomial the second coefficient, the middle coefficient, which is, in this case, it's 2 over 3. It's a fraction. So, yeah, to be perfectly frank with you, fractions in this topic come out a lot, since, especially when you take out something, so they come up. So you have to carry on with fractions. Anyway, now, you take this middle coefficient, which is basically denoted by b, since this is a, the first coefficient, the middle coefficient b, and the last coefficient is c. And you want to divide this coefficient b by 2 and square it. This number you want to add to your terms. So again, you take this coefficient, you halve it, so you divide it by 2, and after you square it. So in this case, you would simply have 2 over 3, we divide it by 2, and afterwards squaring this, so raised to the second power. Let's simplify, since it involves a complex fraction and we want to simply get rid of this. So 2 over 3, when you divide by 2, it's the same thing as 2 over 3. You multiply by 1 over 2, and these two would just cancel each other out. So you would be left with 1 over 3. And you need to square this, and it simply becomes 1 over 9. So at this point, all you need to do is just add this 1 over 9. And at this point I will draw just normal parentheses enclosing these terms. Now, this is the most important part, extremely important. Since you add something to your term, you have to subtract off the same quantity, the same amount, the same fraction at this point. Because we don't want to change the overall value of your trinomial, of your expression. So, since we add something immediately after, instantly, right off the bat, I'm going to subtract this 1 over 9. And don't forget that we still have this kind of negative 8 over 3 hanging around. So, and at this point, I'm going to close my square parentheses, since this 3 basically applies and distributes to all terms inside the parentheses, including this constant negative 8 over 3. Now, it looks like a little bit a mess, disaster, don't worry, so just let's simplify. The next line. Again, to reiterate, to sum up, at this point you add the second coefficient, half, so divided by 2, and squaring. So basically, all you need to do, you add it and you subtract it immediately after, instantly. So now you carry down this 3, drop it down, and now in this normal parentheses, basically we have a perfect square trinomial. So we basically could kind of squeeze it, squash it, and instead of this, basically that's our aim, that's our goal, this basically what we want to do. So instead of this, you would simply get x plus, you need to take the half of your term. So here goes not b, but b over 2. So it's basically, just right off to the side. So you want to include here this b over 2. So in our case, so since your b is 2 over 3, and you divide it by 2, so it's the same thing as just a third, so 1 over 3. Since when you divide, so basically it's the same thing as you multiply by 1 over 2. So to cancel each other out, and you will be left with a third. So this third goes over here. We completed the square. So basically what we want to write something like x plus minus a number square. So we reached out this point. So instead of this trinomial, we would get this compact neat form. So this basic form, this is basically means completing the square. We completed the square. But we need to clean up over here. So we're not done yet basically at this point. So we need to, these two fractions, they need to come together. So, and basically again, as I said, fractions come up here, and let's say 8 over 3, this fraction, that's kind of tail. It can be treated, so we need to get the common denominator. So we multiply by 3, top and bottom. So it becomes 24 over 9. So now we have the same denominator. So we can basically add these two fractions and write negative in front, since we have negative 1 over 9 and negative 24 over 9. So it simply becomes negative 25 over 9. And you shut these square parentheses. Well, basically we're done, but to me it doesn't look that perfect that I always want. So, alright, let's say the last step. I want to distribute this 3. I want to take this 3, and since it's outside of the parentheses, this 3 applies and distributes to both terms inside. Let's simply open up, remove the parentheses by distributing this this number. So it simply becomes 3. So I'm going to leave out these square parentheses. I'm going to just drop them off. So it becomes just x plus a third squared minus, and 3 gets multiplied by this fraction. So it simply becomes 25 over 3. Since when you multiply a number by a fraction, so this number, you could do it off to the side if you like. So this number basically, when you multiply 3 by something, let's say 25 over 9, so this number goes on top, and you could simply cancel, since 3 fits into 9, 3 goes into 9 3 times, you are left with negative 25 over 3. And we are done. Congratulations. So this is your completed form for that trinomial. Again, to reiterate, to sum up, if you are given a coefficient which is not 1, pull it out, take it out and place it in front of your parentheses. Write down what's left over. If your leading or first coefficient is 1, you are lucky one. So you could simply skip over this step and move on. So it would be easier for you to do the rest. Now, the next step. Always you want to take your middle coefficient b, half it, divided by 2, and square it, raised to the second power. So this number, sometimes it needs to be simplified like I did. You add, and immediately after you subtract off. You take it away. And don't forget that's left over. Don't forget that's constant, that's hanging out, sticking out. Now, immediately after, you are ready to complete your square. So you're ready to write it in a neat, compact form. X plus or minus a number and everything raised to the second power. So, and instead of this number, it's basically gonna be b over 2, half of this middle coefficient. Always half of the middle coefficient, it's gonna be in your square over here. So clean it up, slick it up, do some algebra, apply some basic algebra skills, and simplify it down. If you have to, if you need to, the last stage, the last point, you open up the parentheses and get your completed square form. Alright, I hope it was helpful. Thanks for watching and train your brain. I know everyone hates maths, but if you like my video, please hit like, share with your friends, leave the comment down below, and be sure to subscribe so you will not miss out my new videos.